Hey Ted, it's video time, and I got some ideas. How do you feel about Warlock or maybe Sorcerer?
Well, people really love sorcerers.
Yeah, but Warlocks have so many cool abilities. They got boons, they got patrons, invocations even.
But this isn't chocolate and peanut butter. We can't just mash them together.
I got an idea. Why don't we let them decide? Welcome to Nerdarchy. Nerdarchist Dave here, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with...
Nerdarchist Ted. And today, we're going to let you decide whether we're going to come up with a sorcerer or a warlock, because we're talking D&D and the lore of chaos.
Hey, do you want content you can put right in your game?
If the answer is yes, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tune to that notification bell.
All right, so we're kind of continuing our series that we've been doing, where we're creating stories around the miniatures that we got from Pacesetter Games, and intern Jake did an awesome paint job with the Vallejo paints on them, and now we're to the Chaos Giant. So their Chaos Giant, it looks kind of like an Ettin, but not really.
This is one of the minis that, immediately stood out to me when I was looking through their catalog. Typically when you see a two-headed creature, like the heads are very similar, whether it be a Hydra, an Ettin, they're all, thematic. Whereas these things, this looks like a creature that you took two things, split down the middle, and merged them together with, two heads. They don't look anything alike. So I'm like, this is really boosting the ideas of how I would use this particular miniature in a game.
Right. So with these, we've been doing some stuff where we create stuff for the players and we create stuff for the DMs. Well, in this case, the player content that we're going to create is either going to be a sorcerer origins, or it's going to be a warlock patron or pact boon or something to do with warlocks for sure. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some of our ideas, and then we want you guys to help us out. We're going to have a poll over on our Patreon. There will be a link in the description below. Anyone can head over there and take part in the poll. You don't have to be a patron, but it'll help us out to decide where we go with this and what kind of thing we end up building. And that thing that we end up building, we're going to end up giving it away for free as a PDF someplace.
To us in our world that we have, we have chaos storms, magical energies that don't function like your typical storm and have some bizarre effects. So we decided, well, this creature that definitely has two halves that do not seem to go together, would probably in some way, shape, or form derive from these chaos storms.
When I look at this mini, what I see is one half that clearly looks like a Ifriti and the other half that clearly looks like a genie. So I'm like, wow, how would these things come to be? How would they mix? How can we mix them together and have it make sense? Is it a unique monster? It's only happened once? Is there a race of these things? And you mentioned the Chaos Storms, and that's definitely a way of doing it. We have a region in our world that was created by Nate the Nerdarch, and it's kind of like, it's warded and guarded by these towers that the custodians are mystic thri-creens. And they use their mental might to contain the chaos storms that happen in this place, this wasteland, if you would. Now, I know there's other fantasy games and fictional worlds that use the chaos waste kind of theme, and we're going to use it as well. It's just a lot of fun. I know Warhammer has a great one that I love so much, and we're probably going to be stealing from that a little bit, or at least inspired anyway.
Absolutely. So we have the Fields of Discord, the Discordant Fields. There's probably a bunch of different names, that this place is going to, be referred to as. And with that, we've got chaos storms that frequent this place, or perhaps are like a constant presence, whereas in the rest of the world, they can come and go, whereas here they're there all the time.
It's almost like this is a nexus. So we kind of said, well, what if this chaos giant is actually a race that breeds true now in our world, and they come from this place, from this Fields of Discord. And how it happened was, in ages gone by, ages past, the genies and the Ifriti were locked in a war. One of their major battles happened here before it was actually the Fields of Discord. And them throwing around and unleashing so much magical might has caused a rift to open up for the first Chaos Storm to wiggle its way into our world, into Oathganya. And maybe the first one is the most powerful one. We even talked about perhaps it has sentience, a thing from a far realm, from beyond the stars and time and space itself. It sees what's going on or experiences what's going on and uses that energy to create. And what it creates is horrific.
The second that you give a name to something, it becomes a little bit more real and has the bigger chance to, in my opinion, begin furthering the inspiration and furthering the story. So I came up with this name, Muratsarak.
Muratsarak. Now I just envision like each one of these giants, both of its head, one voice a little more melodic, and the other voice a little more like kind of demonic even. Masalak, 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 chanting.
So like when you've got something that loves chaos, loves change, and then you give it the ability to, infuse and create, and make changes to a world where it's like, I don't like symmetry. I don't like, things to, mesh and blend well together. You have the ability to really alter a landscape in a way where you can make something that's unique and unlike anything else that's out there. And that's this thing's mission. That's this thing's goal. And, the Chaos Giant, as we're calling it, winds up becoming its like, premier minions. And they then, have this innate desire to further this goal as well.
Now, you did mention about what, by giving something a name, it kind of empowers it, which is really important. And it's a good place for us to give name to our sponsors in this video. We want to thank Vallejo Paints as well as Pacesetter Games and Simulations for sponsoring this series.
I've talked to many different professional painters over my years, my love of miniatures, my love of painting, and so many of them say that when it comes to painting, like, you got to stick with Vallejo. I mean, even other unmentionable miniature companies out there, come pre-primed with Vallejo. So obviously there's some credit, to go out there. And, looking through the catalog of, Pacesetter Games and Miniatures, there are so many miniatures besides the wonderful Chaos Giant that, fuel the imagination and just, the love of miniatures that I have. I'm like, I need to have that, and I need to have that, and I need to have that. So, go check out these awesome sponsors. Support the channel by supporting our sponsors.
Yeah, they both have great products over there. Everything you're going to need when it comes to painting and assembling minis. And Pacesetter Games also has other products as well, like adventures. They have some free downloads. You can download their catalog for free. It's all worth checking out and looking at. They do such a great job with these. The folks that we know and talk to, when we show them the Pacesetter minis, they're surprised a small company is putting out such great sculpts. I know I'm super inspired when I look at them, and it's made us want to make more videos like this, where we go, oh, here's a thing, and then we get an awesome painter. Ted does a pretty good job. I can't paint for shit. Put some colors on it, and like, man, that's inspiring. So, in the description, you're going to be able to find a contest as well as links to the sponsors. Go check them out. We're going to be giving away a set of paints, an unpainted mini, as well as a mini that has been painted by intern Jake. Did a fantastic job. So you can check that out all in the description. With that, let's get back to the video.
As I said, giving a name to things. So we've got this essentially sentient Chaos Storm, and it's now trapped, in these fields, and it's we've got this race of giants that is bred true. But if we've got a sentient Chaos Storm, that's ripe for the pickings when it comes to something that's powerful enough to give a Warlock pact. And if we've got something that has the ability to affect a large area and, permeate change, well, isn't that also, ripe for the pickings, the makings of a Sorcerer's bloodline?
I believe they are. Both of those would absolutely be just those things. And the thing is, though, what does a storm want? What is it trying to accomplish? We're going with the idea this happened in the past. So, what has happened to the Chaos Giants since? They breed true, but at the same time, I almost feel like they're this mutant degenerative race of agglomerations of Freedy and genies.
So, I mean, were they originally Ettins? Were they initially, the elementals? Were they, Jins that were merged together during this fight? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could go. Are they legitimately giants, or are they elementals? I mean,
Right.
all of these things spark questions.
I feel like they're going to degenerate, and no matter what they were in the past, they're going to be giants now. They're going to be like uber Ettins. They're not going to be as powerful. They might not be as powerful as the Jinn they once were, but I think physically they're going to be very strong and powerful. They probably just won't wield the magic the way they did.
The Ettin is a challenge for. Obviously, we're looking to, ramp up the power, and we're certainly going to give them some magic capabilities. I mean, if they're being derived from these elemental beings, they need to have magic.
All the genies are of a CR11, pretty much, the primary ones, and the ones we are looking at. Maybe they have magic, maybe not. I'm not really sure. Like, I almost want to make them degenerate and primitive compared to genies themselves, but just like maybe they're empowered by that elemental energy. Like, obviously they probably have resistances to that stuff, and maybe to a small extent they can still wield it.
Maybe we could have like more reactive magics. So maybe they can do things like absorb elements or shield, but not actually do anything where in physical combat they're still punching and swinging weapons, but it's more about the innate magic that happens when things come at them as opposed to them outwardly controlling it.
We could do something along that, maybe, or maybe the ability to send fire down their weapon on the one side, or lightning down the weapon, where maybe they do a little bit of elemental damage as well. These are all things we can look at. Doug had this idea when we were planning for this video and talking about it, where they actually can split into two like smaller giants, right? If we make them huge and they split into two small, like small side of large giants, but maybe they can only go so far apart from each other, and we'll have to come up with like cool and unique mechanics for that.
That would be really interesting to have things where they have the ability to become two for a short duration, and then what happens after that duration is over? Like, do they magically fly back together? Do they suffer ill effects until they make it back? Those are just some fun things to think about.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're going to explore a little bit more. But now let's talk about the idea of where we want to go for character classes, and for the Sorcerer subclass or the Warlock subclass. What are some things we have to think about?
Diving into this kind of stuff, like, it really is going to really derive upon what that focal point is. So again, if we've got this sentient chaos storm, Mratsoak, and we talked about it wanting to enact change and enact essentially asymmetry. Regardless of whether you go Warlock or whether you go Sorcerer, what if taking upon or having this kind of power, gives you the ability to have physical alterations upon your body?
I like that, and I'm going to jump to the mechanics real quick and look at Sorcerer and Warlocks, right? Both, Bloodline or Patron is going to kind of give you like a set of abilities. Now, both classes have other abilities. One has invocations and the other has sorcery points. So we could kind of play with those things in order to manipulate those prime abilities that we make.
So, we could create invocations specific to this kind of patron. I know that's not really done in the other things that are out there. I know there was Unearthed Arcana, though, that did specifically tie invocations to the Raven Queen. If we're talking about going in that direction, it's absolutely something that we could wind up doing. Like, sorcery points are typically used to use meta magic abilities or create spell slots. But there's nothing to say that like we couldn't create effects that you have the ability to spend sorcery points on that aren't one of those two features.
Well, I mean, there's precedent for doing it as well, so that part isn't actually a big deal. Well, we might stretch the boundaries a little bit. Now, I think we were talking about going down, one of two routes, and that's the idea of mutation, where you're able to kind of self-mutate through the chaos magic. But I mean, we could go in a different direction where you're actually mutating others as well. Then there's the idea of self-transformation. Instead of having transformation spells that, transmute things around you, objects, other creatures, instead you're creating these effects on yourself. I guess the thing to examine is what really is the difference between a mutation and a self-transmutation.
Mutation versus self-transformation, to me that sounds like, whether we're talking about a permanent or a temporary effect. So a mutation, to me, that seems to be like you make this mutation and your character is forever changed. Maybe you could have static abilities where you wind up making choices and once you make it, there is no going back.
You got eye stalks now, buddy. You got eye stalks.
Whereas the self-transformations, they could be more, temporary abilities. It's like, hey, I get this really cool thing. Maybe instead of casting the fly spell, I grow wings and I can do this. And you've got essentially a fly spell for the duration that doesn't require concentration.
It's probably going to be tentacles, man. You're just going to grow tentacles.
No, I just toss some, ideas out there, but it would be, really cool that you could have, these kind of things that eventually then fade next time you want to use it. Oh, you're still left with all of the options as opposed to, well, I made a choice and it stuck that way.
We only have to come up with 4 abilities. For the Warlock, it's going to be 1st, 6th, 10th, and 14th.
And for Sorcerer, it's 1, 6, 14, and 18.
The Sorcerer spread out a little bit more than the Warlock, but with the Sorcerer, we might have a little more wiggle room with those sorcery points depending on how creative we want to get.
But I mean, we can also do the same thing with Warlock invocations.
The invocations are going to be tricky because although I think we could go with like this is for this patron, I think it'd be cooler if we figured out a way that it's really cool for this patron, but the others could use them as well.
It would allow for the more like the stretching of Maratsuak.
And also the idea too is like how would these subclasses affect the player's character, and it doesn't seem like one of the most mentally stable of choices to me.
There is that as well. So,
So maybe we need to look into the insanity rules as well.
That could absolutely be, a part of it. That, if you are dealing with these subclasses, that could be, something to, like, all right, you need to pay attention to these rules because this is not where the normal person wants to go or winds up going by choice.
Yeah, I suspect these are going to end up on the weirder side. But before we delve into it more, we're going to need you folks to give us a hand. There will be a link to the poll in the description so you can go check it out and weigh in and tell us, do you want us to do Sorcerer or do you want us to do Warlock? Where do you think we need to make an option for it?
We're going to wind up doing another video where we go into depth into whatever it is that you guys have chosen us to pick.
Don't forget to stop down in the description and find a link to the contest where you can win the awesome minis from Pacesetter Games and Simulations, as well as the paints from Vallejo Paints. You'll also find links to both of the sponsors down there. Go check them out and show them some love.
If you really like the content that we're doing and you want to be able to help out the channel in another way, you can check out our Patreon. We're producing great content over there every month. And, not only are you going to be able to get the stuff, sooner, but you're also going to be able to get it cheaper than when we put it up on our website.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.